Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And even if you're not currently at Origins, and depending on when you're watching this video, it may be entirely too late anyways, but even if you're not at Origins, or if you're watching this video too late for it to be relevant, it's still relevant to you. Now, this video is going up a little earlier than I usually post. My videos usually, for context, go up at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every single day. Well, forever by now. But this video is going up a little earlier. We're breaking that mold. I don't know if the YouTube gods are going to penalize me for being a little bit out of the norm. This video is going up at 8 a.m. And the reason for that is because if you're at Origins, if you currently watching this video are at Origins, the exhibitor hall opens up at 10 a.m., which means if I put this up at the usual 10 a.m., you're probably already walking around and not watching any videos. You're at Origins. Why would you be watching videos? So if you're in line, if you're trying to figure out what to buy, if you're scanning your YouTube subscriptions, hopefully this video pops up, which I would have loved to get this one up earlier, but I didn't necessarily know exactly what was going to be at Origins. So this might be a bit overwhelming. Let's take a step back. I was at Origins Thursday and Friday for the first 2 days of Origins. I came back home to Cleveland for a Saturday, which we'll talk about my Origins experiences in a different video. I'll be doing a whole bunch of Origins related content as well in the next, week or two, talking about upcoming games I'm excited to play, games I learned about, different things. We'll go through it. My first convention experience, all of that. And by the time you're watching this video, if you're watching it right now, I'm probably on the way back to Origins as we speak. Roughly 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, when I'm filming this, roughly 8 o'clock Sunday morning, I will be heading back to Origins to hopefully make it in time to, get there for the exhibitor hall and experience my last day of Origins. Now, Sunday is the last day, which means if you're watching this video, these are the 10 best games you can buy at Origins right now. No caveats whatsoever, except for the following 5 or 6 caveats, of course. And the following 5 or 6 caveats are as follows. These are only games that I have played. That's caveat number 1. These are only games I have played. These are not games I'm excited about. These are not games that I'm intrigued by. If you stop by Elf Creek Games, you're going to see Merchants of the Dark Road, which I've backed and I'm waiting for. I'm excited for it, but I haven't played it. So, and also I don't think you can buy it there. So it's not really relevant anyway. But this is only including games I've played, not games I, want to play, haven't played, any of those kinds of categories. Caveat number 2. I know there's another caveat here. This is only including actual publishers who are presenting their games, meaning there are a few different companies at Origins that are either stores or distributors that do have a giant pile of assorted games. For instance, if you wander into the far left corner in the very back, you'll find a store selling copies of Ankh. Ankh is a tremendous game. I love it. I will review it on the channel at some point. Great game, but not one that is being brought there by Command. So I'm only talking about games that are coming from publishers, not the giant stacks of Dominions that Rio Grande has. Like, there's a bunch of games from a distributor with Rio Grande Games and CGE and a whole bunch of different things in the middle of the hall somewhere. This is specifically publisher booths or publisher presented games from themselves. And then finally, caveat number 3, and this one should be fairly obvious. I guess it's caveat number 4 too. Caveat number 3, let's go, is going to be the one that this is only, in my opinion, obviously, these are my favorite games at Origins. And finally, caveat number 4, that I noticed or know about. It's entirely possible that I missed one of my favorite games there. In fact, for instance, a good example would be at CGE's booth. I don't recall seeing Through the Ages, which is an amazing game, and you should get it. If it's at CGE's booth, Czech Games Edition, then you should absolutely get it. I don't recall seeing it, so it's not on this list. And with all those disclaimers and prelude and all of that, it's a good thing I do timestamps on this channel, so you can skip all the stuff in case you're not interested. Let's start with the 10 best games you can buy at Origins right now. Starting off the bat with one you'll be able to find as soon as you walk into that exhibitor hall. If you walk past the gaming area into the exhibitor hall, I probably should have a little graph or something. I'm not going to. It is what it is. You'll find that Arcane Wonders has a booth right smack dab in your face, and there are a bunch of great games there, including some that didn't make this list. Furnace is a great game I just reviewed on the channel. Really enjoyed it. But it's not my top 10 as far as, the games I chose. But Air, Land, and Sea is absolutely amazing. Air, Land, and Sea, which is going to have an expansion coming out soon. And they also, in case you're confused, they should have both this version that you're seeing here now, as well as a cartoon version of the same game. So if you see Air, Land, and Sea Critter version or something like that, but the art looks great. I plan on picking up a copy myself because, I like Air, Land, and Sea already, and gorgeous cartoon artwork just seems like it's more thematic. That's not true. It's not more thematic. It is funnier. I like it. Either way, Air, Land, and Sea is going to be a tight 2-player game. For me, it's one that has joined the ranks of Battleline, Hanamakoji, some other games in that genre, as being my favorite head-to-head 2-player game. Something light and fun and punchy with a decent dose of strategy. And many of these games, by the way, for many of these games on this list that we go through, you'll probably have heard me talk about them before. After all, these are my 10 favorite games you can buy at Origins right now. The 10 best games you can buy at Origins. Air, Land, and Sea is going to be thematic. It's going to be punchy. It's going to be strategic. The general idea of it is going to be card playing to 3 different theaters, Air, Land, and Sea, as the title may have hinted at. But the challenge of the game, the struggle, the strategy, the parts I love of the game are twofold. First and foremost is going to be, there's only 18 cards in the game. Once you learn those 18 cards, once you know what's going on in those 18 cards, it becomes an incredibly meaty experience to understand that your hand of 6 cards you're going to start with, and then your opponent has 6 cards, and there are 6 cards out of play. You already have a ton of information as far as what can be there. You will have to spend a game or two getting those cards kind of into your head. Once you know that this card flips your card, that card is going to turn all face-down cards into +2. That's just a plain old 6, but it's a 6, so it can be very helpful. Once you know those cards and know what to expect, there's a ton of strategy in this game. It's great. It's amazing. But the second point, because I didn't talk about the second point just yet. The second point is going to be that this game has a withdrawal mechanic. Once you feel you're losing any particular theater, because you have to win 2 of the 3 theaters, and if you feel that you aren't going to win, you can withdraw. And the earlier you withdraw, the fewer points your opponent gets. You see, in Air, Land, and Sea, all you need to do is have an absolute crushing victory twice. And if you play poorly, you will give your opponent those 2 crushing victories. In reality, this game is going to be one in which you look at your hand, you play your first card, you kind of judge your opponent, you see how confident they look, you see which cards they play first, and they make a decision. Do you keep going or do you withdraw? Rinse and repeat across each of your card plays, and you can walk away handing your opponents 2 points instead of 6. Sure, you got dealt a bad hand. Who cares? You could have walked away. You should have walked away. This game has so much strategy. I loved this game before it's cool. It's one of the first reviews I ever did on Board Game Co. as a channel. I was so into this game. I'm excited they have an alternate version. I'm excited they have expansion. If I spend this much time talking about every single one of the games on this list, we're going to have a problem. And so with that, we're going to put it off to the side and then talk about Under Falling Skies from CGE. Under Falling Skies, CGE, Czech Games Edition. Like I said already, if they have through the ages, get that as well. And they have a host of other games. They have Tolkien, they have Last Will, they have Galaxy Trucker, the new edition of Galaxy Trucker. Tons of games that you can find at Origins right now. Now this one's going to be, honestly, I mean, assuming it's in the same place it was when I left, it's going to be before you even get into the main hall. This is going to be right when you're about to walk into the main hall, before you even get to the halfway point, the exhibitor booth, just turn around, and right behind you is going to be a little section full of, well, CGE playing their games. That Lost Ruins of Arnak expansion, if you are intrigued by it, you can't buy it. I'm sorry. If you could, I'd already have it. But they have a lot of games, and Under Falling Skies is one you should absolutely pick up. This is a game that was not on my radar at all until I played it, and from there I loved it. It is my favorite, I think, I have to double check my list, but it's my favorite solo experience from 2020. I put this as my number 2 favorite game that I played from 2020 in terms of, well, 2020 published dates or all that. It is a solid game from CGE. It is a solo experience, so you have to kind of want a solo experience, but honestly, I think this is also a great time to jump into solo experiences. And in fact, you could play it cooperatively in case solo's not really your thing. I think it really feels like a solo game, but if you're someone who doesn't play solo, then this will be a decent cooperative game at the same time. It is a game where you're going to have, well, it's Independence Day, the board game, honestly, except without the license, obviously. You're going to have ships invading. You're going to have a mothership as well as small little fleets slowly heading towards Earth, and then you have to roll the dice and assign them in a way that will be helpful for the resources you need, for the engine you need, for the puzzle you need. But the larger the dice, the more beneficial it is for you, but the larger the dice, the faster the alien ships move towards you. So where you assign them and how you assign them is a glorious little puzzle. And then the game gives you campaign play as well as different planets or different bases to give you a degree of variability, a large degree of variability. I haven't even finished all the campaign stuff because usually when I play this game, I just jump back in and then get a game or two from where I left off and then play one more in the campaign. I've played this game, I don't know exactly how many times, but easily over 15 times. Really enjoyed it. A solid little solo puzzle. That's going to be Under Falling Skies from CGE. Continuing the trend of small box games, we're going to go with Watergate from Capstone Games. Now again, if you're wandering into the convention hall, you're going to walk past the little gates, you'll see Arcane Wonders, walk a little bit further, and then turn to your right. Capstone Games is going to be right over here with a variety of games that I have both played, as well as games that I want to play. They have both. They recently took on the license for Terra Mystica, so they have that. I believe, was it Terra Mystica? I'm pretty sure they have license for Terra Mystica now. They also acquired license for Orleans, but they don't have that at the game just yet. That was going to be from TMG Games. But they do have a bunch of other games that are worth paying attention to. We'll be talking about some of these other games in, well, other videos I do across Origins or covering Origins across the next few weeks. But Watergate is going to be one that I absolutely recommend. Watergate is likely, I'll have to check, but Watergate is likely my favorite Capstone Games game. This is going to be a game designed by Matthias Kramer, I think. Either way, Watergate is going to be a game that is a two-player. So far we have solo and two-player. I do have more games that are not two-player only. I think. I'm pretty sure. I do. But either way, Watergate is going to be a two-player head-to-head experience, replicating the Nixon and the whole conspiracy there. One player being Nixon, one player being the press, as you try to pin down Nixon, connecting the shreds of evidence in this game, while Nixon tries to outlast and build enough public support so that your connections don't matter. That's the thematic aspect of the game. But the game plays off in terms of having an evidence board and push and pull of the various evidence tokens, push and pull of the momentum of trying to figure out how can you just make sure that the public doesn't care enough, or the public does care enough, whichever way you're going. All while you go through a degree of card play that's going to be both using and consuming your cards in almost an inherent deck weaving experience. You have to choose when to use your abilities, knowing full well that you're going to end up cycling your deck. So removing a card permanently from your deck could be a good or bad thing depending on the card. Trying to block evidence, trying to connect the chain of dots, which things you fight over in this game. All Watergate is a tug of war. That's all it is. It's nothing more than a simple tug of war. And yet it works. It works really, really well. I do recommend giving this game at least 2 plays. I found that my first play of Watergate was good, but I wasn't yet hooked. My second play was when I was hooked, and my third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth play, I've continued to enjoy Watergate. It does play best when played with, well, the same person, just going back and forth, switching sides. Oh, Nixon's clearly too strong. Really? Let's switch sides, have a few more games, and still see what you get. Now, plus, you don't really get the full strategy until you've played as both sides. Watergate is delightful, plays well. I don't typically care for more historical themed games. I mean, we actually will have a few on this list, so ignore me when I say that. But in general, I like more, I don't know, mages and wizards and warlocks, and I like more sci-fi, fantasy, cowboys and stuff. I mean, you throw Watergate and Air, Land, and Sea and the next game. Well, I don't always love historical World War II themed games, stuff like that. But if the game's good enough, I'll take whatever you can get. And by the next game, I mean Blitzkrieg. This is going to be from PSC Games. Remember, again, going through the convention hall, you're going to walk over there, you're going to see Arcane Wonders, you're going to keep walking, and then if you spin a little bit around kind of over here, you're going to walk down the middle lane, but then off a little bit to the left, you'll see PSC Games. They're right behind the booth for Floodgate, Sagrada. You'll see a whole stack of tons of Sagrada there. Another great game that sadly didn't make this list, but Blitzkrieg did. Blitzkrieg, they're going to be showcasing and advertising for Caesar as well. Another version or iteration of Blitzkrieg that I'm very much looking forward to adding. Sadly, you can't add it to my collection. You can't get that one there, but you can get Blitzkrieg from them. I don't know if I saw much else. I think PSC had Blitzkrieg. They may have had other games there. I don't recall seeing them. They do make other games, but I mean, Blitzkrieg is going to be my favorite, so I can't fault them for showing this one off there. Now, Blitzkrieg is going to be another 2-player. I guarantee, I don't just have drier 2-player head-to-head games. I mean, I have other games coming. Blitzkrieg, and timestamps down below in case you want to skip to any relevant game. Blitzkrieg is going to be from Paolo Mori, and this is going to be a game that he's the designer of Dogs of War. He's done some phenomenal games, a whole bunch of games that I really value and appreciate. Blitzkrieg has sadly not been reviewed by me yet, but it should be. It's an incredible game experience, one that I really enjoy. It's both myself and for Marina, my wife, we really enjoy playing this one. It is a 2-player, thematic World War II. I think it's World War II. World War II in 20 minutes. It's 20-ish minutes. It's really in the range of 20-25 minutes as you sit there and try to figure out, again, which lanes, which theaters of battle you're trying to win. Taking tokens from behind the screen and playing those tokens, both for their strength value so you can actually win the battle, as well as for the various effects, adding more tokens behind your screen, giving yourself more variability, more flexibility as the general you're trying to be, investigating or researching new technologies, new things. Now you have that giant aircraft carrier that is a strength 5 value, which can be incredibly helpful. It has, again, a tug-of-war feel, the same as Watergate, and yet, like Watergate, it's not about the tug-of-war. The tug-of-war is what drives the experience, but it's about the nuance and subtleties behind the tug-of-war, and Blitzkrieg gives those to you in droves. Now, I am excited for Caesar as well. I do recommend trying to get your hands on that one based on what I've seen of it. Caesar seems to be a little bit messier, but also a little bit more intricate, kind of at the same time giving you a little bit of... I haven't played Caesar. I shouldn't talk about Caesar. Let's focus more on Blitzkrieg, because Blitzkrieg is, well, an amazing game that if you are at Origins and you haven't picked this one up and you like 2-player games, even if you don't like World War II, because I really don't like World War II in my games. This is just, they're good enough games, so they're going to stay. That is going to be Blitzkrieg. And now let's get to something lighter and fluffier. I talked about Elf Creek Games already when I mentioned Merchants of the Dark Road, but they have a variety of games you can buy at Origins that are going to be, well, actually available. Again, I don't actually know. They may have pre-orders for Merchants of the Dark Road. I haven't played it. Not the point of this list. We're going to talk about what I do want to talk about, which is Honeybuzz. Honeybuzz from Elf Creek Games is delightful. I have a playthrough and review on the channel where I, play the game. I do love this game. It is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to potential future expansions, which I believe there are going to be future expansions. But this is a game that is both visually delightful. It's not about World War II, which is always great for one of these lists. I really, again, I have just 3 historical stuff right in a row. Maybe that's your thing, in which case, great. Welcome to Board Game Co. We cover stuff. But anyways, Honeybuzz is going to be a game of bee placement. You're going to be sort of placing out your workers, your honeybees, into various zones, trying to build up and improve upon your various, tiles that you gather. You're going to be trying to gather more workers. You're going to be trying to gather the right tiles, adding these tiles to your hive in a way that creates this little bit of a puzzle, because you're going to be creating these action circles that triggers and give you the different ways to both generate honey, to fulfill orders, to move around, to add more bees. It's a very fascinating little puzzle of a little bit of worker placement combined with building up what your hive does and how your hive does it well. It is beautiful. It has amazing components. It is a simple, elegant puzzle. I think it is, I generally refer to this genre as Gateway Plus. I don't think it's a gateway game. I think it's got a little more complexity and nuance added. At the same time, it is just light enough that it's still very accessible, very easy to dive into, and also beautiful. I think I said that like 3 times. This is a game you can pick up from Elf Creek Games. I forgot to do my little visual thing. We have, walk in, Arcane Wonders, walk up just a drop, just a tiny little bit, and then turn to your right, and then right there in front of you is going to be Elf Creek Games, along with Honeybuzz, Atlantis Rising, and Merchants of the Dark Road. Atlantis Rising is another great game that did not make this list. Right now we're talking about Honeybuzz. But yeah, Honeybuzz is my biggest complaint, my biggest pet peeve with it was I think after multiple games, it does start to feel a bit samey, even though they do have variable objectives that are kind of, in the game to keep it variable. But I feel the core mechanics, the core actions does feel a bit samey once you're 4 or 5 plays deep. For myself, I don't play it that frequently that it's not that big an issue. I played it like 4 or 5 times when I first got it, and since then it occasionally hits the table. Not enough that it's boring me or tiring me out, one that's still engaging and fun, but like I said, expansions should be coming, which means any problems there should hopefully be solved. Next up, trying to get these all in shot, because why not? Let's show them all. Next up, we have another company, which is going to be Whistle Mountain. Whistle Mountain is going to be from Bezier Games. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And Whistle Mountain is another game that I reviewed already on the channel. This is a messy, amazing worker placement experience. And this is one that visually doesn't pull me in. In fact, more specifically, I'd say more than that. If you played Whistle Stop, I believe it is. I think it's Whistle Stop. They had another game in the line before it called, I think, Whistle Stop. That is not really the same game at all. And by at all, I mean it's not the same game at all. The two have nothing to do with one another, past perhaps the theme. Whistle Mountain is going to be a messy worker placement game where you place out your workers, your blimps, into various location zones to try to gather resources, to try to gather more tiles, more cars, more everything in this game. And everything is the key word. This game is a glorious mess, like I said already. But then you're going to also withdraw your workers, trying to get more actions as you build up the various things you've gathered. You're going to have machine tiles, you're going to have scaffolding, you're going to have cards in your hand that give you tons of abilities. You're going to have everything in this game wants you, there's always something to do. You can place your cards next to various locations to gather resources. You can place your cards on the machines that you've crafted and built to trigger all of those, as well as the machines touching your blimp. It's a mess of madness. It's a mess of things you can do, and there's always things you can do. Sure, the person across the table from you just took your spot, the spot you've been planning around for 2 turns, but it doesn't matter, because there's always another spot. There's always somewhere else you can go. And they all are amazingly rewarding in this game. Whistle Mountain is fun. You build up, you upgrade, you improve your gears, you improve your actions, and you do all that while trying to, win. Ultimately win. Winning is the point of the game. Now, this game does play well it plays very well at 2. I think 3 is the sweet spot for me. 4 starts to get a little longer and you don't get as much done. But I really do enjoy this one. This is going to be from Scott Caputo and Luke Laurie, both fantastic designers. And if you're at the Bezier Games booth, which, by the way, walk in the game, Arcane Wonders, you see a little Elf Creek here, further up, and then over there, right around there, possibly a little further up, midway up the hall, is going to be Bezier Games. They have a bunch of other games you can check out that are also fantastic. I should say, I think so. Let me see. We have Suburbia, which is great. They have Maglev Metro, which I haven't played yet, but I do plan on talking about more. They have a bunch of One Night Ultimate Werewolves, a whole bunch of games over there that you can check out. They have the whole line of the Silver Amulet, Silver Bullet, a line that wasn't really for me as much. Sadly, they don't have One Night Ultimate Werewolf there, which I do recommend that one a lot. But either way, Whistle Mountain is going to be from Bezier Games, currently available at that booth. This is going to put us at 6 games in. We have 4 more to go. This video is taking longer than I thought. I'm going to take a coffee break. I'll be right back. Enjoy, turn around, talk to your fellow Origins person in the line. Something, do something. I think we're good to go. Excellent. We're back. Cool. We got 4 more. 4 more games to go, because that's the nature. 10 minus 6 is 4. So, we're going to go ahead and go with Aquatica. Another Arcane Wonders game that you can absolutely find. You can skip Picture Perfect. You can skip, well, you shouldn't skip Furnace. Furnace is great. You can skip, I don't even know what else they have there. They have a bunch of games there. When I say you can skip Picture Perfect, I don't mean it's a bad game. I just mean I haven't played it yet. I'll talk about Picture Perfect in another video. But Aquatica is the game that I want you to come home with. And when I say I want you to come home with it, I don't actually care. I mean, I think it's a great game. I think you're missing out if you haven't tried it or played it. And if you didn't like this game, there is probably a small part of me that died inside, but I didn't really notice. I have lots of small little parts of me prepared to die whenever you don't like one of my favorite games. This video gets weird quickly. I probably shouldn't have taken that coffee break. Either way, Aquatica is going to be a game that is going to be from Arcane Wonders, and this is a Dice Towers Essentials, but that doesn't mean as much to me as perhaps it should. It's a good recommendation. For me, I love this game. This is a game that rose very quickly to being one of my top experiences of 2020. One of my top, or is it 21? I don't even know where we're up to. This has been an incredibly enjoyable game that is meaty, it's punchy, it's fast-paced, it's variable. The expansion, the Cold Waters expansion, I do very much recommend. You see, I only played Aquatica once before I dove into the Cold Waters expansion, so I do apologize. This is kind of being recommended as a set. While I think Aquatica to a degree stands on its own without the Cold Waters expansion, I only ever play it with that expansion. I played it once with the base game, tried it with the Cold Waters expansion, and felt that the Cold Waters expansion added enough depth and variability that I didn't see a reason to play without it, or at least not that frequently. It does save a little bit on game time. You might get the game, a 3-player game of Aquatica might take like 30 to 40 minutes, and with the Cold Waters expansion, you might add 10 minutes to that game time. So from that stance, I could see. Either way, I will say I enjoy the base game, but I only ever use the Cold Waters expansion, which will tell you how I feel about that. But Aquatica is a game of hand management. You're going to start with your basic hand of cards. You're going to play one down, take the action, play one down, take the action, eventually play down a card that will let you take back everything else, flipping over some of your mantas as well, some of these manta rays that are going to be giving you different resources you can use. And this is the game. It's a bit of a resource management puzzly game because you don't actually have stacks of resources in front of you. What you do have is each card gives you some degree of leeway to purchase and or fight the various sea zones you're going to be conquering. The mantas in the game are going to give you, well, different actions you can add to that. So you can add one purchase, add one fight, or perhaps if it's the particular genre of color or thematic, whatever, that you're better at, you can add 3 fight, whatever it is, adding various resources. But then the trick of the game is as you conquer sea zones, you're going to be taking these cards and sliding down to this board, and then you can slide them up. They're going to have little lines of resources on the side, and as you cash them in, you'll slide them up, getting extra benefits, extra boons, resources, engines, fighting, currency, whatever it is in the game, until eventually you slide them all the way to the top, at which point you can score that card. So it's a game where you have to manage your sequencing of events. You have to manage the various cards you gather, what you're going to use them for, which characters you're going to combine them with. Are you going to buy more characters? You're going to start going for these scoring objectives. You're going to add more mantas. There's a ton of different ways to approach how you want to make your engine more efficient in Aquatica. The Cold Waters expansion gives you, I think, a better scoring objectives. Base game gives you standard scoring objectives. Cold Waters expansion is going to give you more card variability, so you have that off the bat, as well as a different way of scoring, a different way of figuring out that puzzle that I really enjoy and appreciate. But again, base game on its own, I still enjoy, to be very clear. I just like it a lot more with the Cold Waters expansion. This is going to be, again, if you walk into the booth, you're going to see Arcane Wonders, and you're going to stop there because you don't need to go past it. Arcane Wonders is getting a lot of free mentions in this video because they're the first booth when you walk in. So I keep saying Arcane Wonders, past Arcane Wonders, go there. Either way, this time around, you don't have to go past Arcane Wonders. It's going to be Aquatica. It is a 5 out of 5 for me. One of my favorite experiences that I've had. A really, really solid game from, well, Arcane Wonders again. Next up, 3 to go, we have Lost Ruins of Arnak. You see, this time we don't have to mention Arcane Wonders, although I guess I just did again. This is going to be, again, before you even walk into the convention hall, turn around, you'll see CGE, same place you went to go ahead, Under Falling Skies, you'll see Lost Ruins of Arnak. I'm 99% sure I saw the base game there. I'm 99% sure. It'd be a shame if they didn't, because this is an amazing game. This is another game that I gave a 5 out of 5. Back in 2020, I want to say, not 2021. This is when I played towards the end of 2020. I played this along with Dune Imperium and Endless Winter. In case you want to see a comparison video of those 3 games, I have that on the channel. You can check it out. But Lost Ruins of Arnak has continuously improved the more I've played it. I liked it a lot from the get-go, but the more I dive into it, the more enjoyable it becomes. And it also plays well at variable player counts. Plays well at 2, 3, and 4 players. 2 and 3 is the sweet spot for me. Again, the 4th player is fine. It's a fast-moving game, but the 4th player still does add downtime and not as much an interaction. 3 is going to be my favorite, then 2, then 4. Either way, does have a solo mode. Haven't dived into it solo yet. It also has a solo campaign that you can kind of download or have an app for. Haven't dived into it yet. And they have an expansion, Expedition Leaders, I think. Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders, I think is the name of the expansion. Not yet available to purchase. But Lost Ruins of Arnak is going to be a deck-building worker placement game. You're going to be exploring the jungle. It's going to feel like you're Indiana Jones. Not really feel like you're... It's going to feel like you're an adventurer like Indiana Jones. Like what Indiana Jones does when he's not being chased by Germans and who knows what. Like when his off days, on his regular boring days that didn't get turned into feature films, that's going to be Lost Ruins of Arnak. Throw in a hint of mystical creatures that will be chasing you down. These guardians you'll have to engage with as you explore new locations. But it ultimately is a puzzle of how to cycle your deck, of how to utilize your actions. And the card variability is going to be a lot of card variability, although the more you play the game, the more you will experience it all. Meanwhile, you're also moving up this research track that's both going to give you giant mountains of points if you go all the way up, but also improve your various helpers along the way and give you different resources and other things to go with. There's a lot of different pathways to go through in Lost Ruins of Arnak, although I will say for myself, I do find that the research track is somewhat essential. How high you go, less so, but some degree of essentialness in the research track. Although, if you've played Lost Ruins of Arnak and you've won without the research track, and no one else won on the research track, let me know, because I'd be curious. I'm sure it's happened, I just haven't seen it happen in our games. That said, that's not really a complaint, it's a minor note. It is a game of deck building and worker placement and lots of cards and artifacts and abilities, lots of abilities. I just want more content for the game, which is why I'm eagerly awaiting the Expedition Leaders expansion. Next up, we're going to start clearing things out of the way because things are going to get very messy very quickly because we have 2 big games left to talk about. And the first one is not going to be the full box because to carry my full box across the room, well, I can do it. It's not a big deal, but I don't have space on the table or to like pick up a giant thing. What I can do is I can show you how much characters I have for Too Many Bones. So again, you walk into the Expedition Hall, you see Arcane Wonders, you walk right past Arcane Wonders. Don't go a step further, turn to your left, and Too Many Bones, Chip 3 Games is going to be right there. And I don't think they have the Trove Chest, at least if they did, I didn't see it. But they do have plenty of Too Many Bones content. If you want Too Many Bones content to... Well, first of all, let's take a step back. Too Many Bones is the game I'm talking about here. The reason I'm not showing you the box is because I have all my Too Many Bones content kind of condensed into their giant Trove Chest, because I have all the content, and I'd like it to be as organized neatly as possible, and the Trove Chest does just that. It does that at the cost, the very high cost of portability. My Trove Chest hasn't moved since I've put it together. My Trove Chest has not shifted from the space where it belongs because it is heavy, it is unwieldy. It does make pulling out a map, a character, whatever it is I need pretty easy, but it's not a travel game anymore. Not that it was a travel game that much before, although it does mean that when Too Many Bones Unbreakable launches on GameFound in October, it does mean that I will consider keeping Unbreakable separate, because it is a standalone game, and having a separate experience that I could travel with, while still having access to the content, that does make it intriguing, although yes, in case you're wondering, it will fit into the Too Many Bones Trove Chest, although they said that you may have to reconfigure and manipulate and use every last spot of spots, so we'll see. I may end up keeping it separate just so I have a travel version of Too Many Bones for when I want to go places or do stuff, or not have to navigate through the Trove Chest. Either way, I'm getting sidetracked. Too Many Bones is an amazing experience. It is an expensive experience to be very, very sure. They do have Too Many Bones Undertow, which is a nice way to dive in, and in fact, that was my first experience into the genre, so I can say that at least for myself, it certainly worked as an entry point, as an excuse and a reason why I went from not owning any Too Many Bones to owning all Too Many Bones, because it is a fantastic game. Now, you don't need all the Too Many Bones. It's way too much content. Unless you're playing this game a lot, the base game of Too Many Bones will be plenty. Undertow, I feel, is a little dry on content. Undertow is actually a game all about the river, so it's being dry on content is thematically inappropriate. But either way, Undertow is a great experience and a great introduction and a great taste of the game, but I don't think that it is enough. I think Undertow combined with maybe a single character, maybe 2 character packs, that will already give you a good amount of variability and flexibility, but otherwise you're kind of stuck with just the too many characters from Undertow, which can be not as much variability as you want. But Too Many Bones is going to be mostly played out on a little 4x4 grid of moving your stacks of chips around the board while you encounter all these baddies and take into account the various powers and abilities they have, how they're going to hurt you if you let them hurt you, and then trying to do your best to roll the best dice, to take the best actions, and to plan accordingly, utilize your abilities, all designed to, well, last, to survive. To survive another day, because if you can survive another day, you'll start upgrading your character because it has an RPG element to the game. Each character is their own little puzzle. When I say their own little puzzle, I don't mean each character comes to the table with 2 abilities. It's not like that. Each character comes to the board with their own rule sheet of how they play, the interactions of what they do, the way one character will be throwing different grenades left, right, and center and trying to do things that way. You'll have mechs, you'll have sleep darts, you'll have characters with their pets, you'll have characters with their lute and melodies that they're humming or singing or whatever it is to and cast battle chants for some characters and put others to sleep and send them spiraling across the board. Each character has its own unique puzzle and way of playing the game, of way of engaging with the game. And that's a lot of fun. Each character genuinely feels like a different puzzle, a different game to explore. And the downside of Too Many Bones is it will require understanding almost the intelligence and comprehension and nuance of an entire game just to dive into a new character. But if you do so, you will be rewarded with, well, all this level of variety of different little games, different little mini games of puzzles, of ways to engage. I think Too Many Bones is fantastic. The price point is intimidating. Make no mistake about that. The price point is absolutely intimidating, but it is a fantastic game to be playing, well, if you get your hands on it. And lastly, but definitely not least, although for me, arguably, despite the fact that it's last, it's the least one for me, and I'll explain why, but we're going to put the giant box that is Gloomhaven on the table. Now, Gloomhaven's not a game you hear me talk about a lot, and the reason for that is because I've only played this game like 2 or 3 times. I haven't even dived into Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion yet. I intend to. I've only played the original Gloomhaven 2 or 3 times. When I first got it, wanted to play it, see if it was for me, and I liked it. I thought it was intricate. I thought the puzzle was nuanced, and it gave you a lot of strategies. You try to figure out the top half of one card, the bottom half of another card, how the enemies are going to activate, trying to predict when they're going to activate, who's going to attack you, how they're going to attack you, taking advantage of your unique abilities, your unique cards, what you're going to do, trying to do... This is a game as a puzzle. This game is a legacy aspect. It's got a legacy aspect. It's more campaign focused than legacy focused, although there is a drop of legacy to it. But it very much is a game that plays out across 70 plus games as you go through your characters, as you expire some characters and introduce others, as you level up, as you gather gold, as you gather experience, as you dive through the giant book full of missions in this game. And if you're bored, there's Forgotten Circles to jump back into. And then there's Jaws of the Lion. And then, of course, Frosthaven will be coming at some point. And Frosthaven is at Origins as well. And in fact, time to do the little thing. Walk in the doors, past Arcane Wonders, go straight down, and then right before the end, not the very end, but right before the end, you're going to turn around and you're going to see Cephalofair Games. Although if you're having a hard time finding it, just look up because there's going to be a giant thing, you know, on the ceiling showing you where Cephalofair can be found. But either way, Gloomhaven is the #1 rated game on Board Game Geek. And it's a game that I think is amazing. Granted, I don't play it as much as I should. It's not necessarily something that would have made the list as much on my own account because campaign games for me are harder to table just by the very nature of how many games I play, and campaign games are just... I want to dive into Jaws of the Lion. I really, really do. I hope I do. I plan on doing it. Maybe I'll just give up and do it solo. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I desperately want to experience the world that is Gloomhaven. I think it is incredible. I've tasted it. I want more. The fact that I haven't played it shouldn't exclude me from telling you how good this game is, while warning that depending on who you are, you might find yourself like me, pulled in by the game, impressed by the game, able to understand why it's the #1 rated game of all time, but then still not actually tabling it. And it's an expensive game to not table. Plus, of course, if you flew to Origins or anything travel-based, understand this is a fairly big box to take home. That is going to be your list of the top 10 games that you can buy at Origins right now. The top 10 that I've played, at least in terms of my opinion, my experience, with all the caveats I gave at the beginning. Once again, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And if you're watching this video at Origins, I'm there somewhere. I don't know exactly where. I should show up by 10 o'clock. I'll be wandering around the back. If you see me, feel free to interrupt me. I don't care. I'm happy to meet you. If not, no worries. I'll have my kids with me at some point. My wife will be there at some point. My daughter should be there. I'm wandering around. I spent Thursday and Friday connecting with a lot of people. People I've been talking to for the past 2 years now. And people who I now finally get put a face to the name, although face is relative because we're all wearing face masks, so we only kind of half see each other. But when you do recognize the person, it is kind of fun to say hi and talk to them and connect. And then, of course, talking with other people who I haven't had the pleasure of interacting with yet, but now I get to. Origins has been fun so far, and maybe I'll see you around, maybe not. And if you're not at Origins, again, like I said at the beginning, this list is still relevant. These are still 10 amazing games, whether or not you get them at Origins, whether or not you ever get them. But if you do ever have the chance to play them and you haven't, I do recommend trying them. Maybe one's for you. Maybe it's not. I think they're all fantastic. Lost Ruins of Arnak was my 2020, I think. It was my 2020, like, a #1 pick of the year as far as available games that I tried in 2020. Under Falling Skies was right there. Aquatica I didn't play till 2021, but I don't even know what... Is it a 2021? I think it's a 2019 release, which is why I didn't make the pick for that, but I love it. Solid games on this list. I'm starting to ramble, so I will cut this off. I'm going to go finish my coffee. I'm going to go edit this video, because tomorrow morning, bright and early, I'm going to be driving down to Origins for the last day of the convention. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.